You were taught that power comes from expression, from being heard, from clarifying yourself before you're misunderstood. That belief is not accidental. It was installed to make you manageable. In every hierarchy, the loudest man is rarely the most dangerous. He is the most visible. Visibility invites measurement. Measurement invites control. Silence, by contrast, starves the system of data. And what cannot be measured cannot be easily dominated. You think silence is absence. That's because you've never watched it used correctly. Silence is not empty space, it is pressure. Like a vacuum in a sealed room, it forces others to fill it. And when they do, they reveal far more than they intended. Their fears, their motives, their limits. You say nothing, and they bleed information trying to regain equilibrium. The naive man speaks to prove he exists. The strategic man withholds to force others to react. Understand this lens shift clearly. Speech is reactive. Silence is positional. When you talk prematurely, you're responding to someone else's frame. When you stay silent, you force them to orbit yours. You decide the tempo. You decide the meaning. You decide when the exchange even begins. Watch interrogations, negotiations, power meetings. The one who rushes to explain has already lost ground. Explanation is a defensive maneuver. It signals that you feel accused even when no accusation was made. Silence, on the other hand, implies self-sufficiency. It tells the room, I don't need your approval to remain intact. This is why silence unsettles people. It removes their leverage. They can't read you. They can't predict you. They don't know whether you agree, disagree, or are planning something else entirely. In social and political environments, uncertainty is more feared than aggression. Aggression can be countered. Uncertainty forces caution. You've been conditioned to believe that being open is virtuous, that withholding is dishonest, that if you don't explain yourself, you're somehow guilty. This is moral inversion at work. In reality, openness is a concession. It is what subordinates offer superiors to prove compliance. Power never explains itself unless it chooses to. Silence also functions as a filter. Weak men cannot tolerate it. They fidget. They ramble. They negotiate against themselves. Strong men recognize it as a boundary. The moment you stop filling the air with words, you expose who around you is desperate for control and who already has it. There is another truth you must confront. Most of what you say is not necessary. It's nervous. It's compensatory. It's an unconscious attempt to secure position. Every unnecessary word is a leak, a micro-confession, a signal that you are still seeking permission to stand where you are. Silence corrects this posture. It forces internal discipline. You become selective, precise. When you finally speak, your words land heavier because they are rare. Scarcity increases value. This law applies to language as much as resources. Do not confuse this with timidity. Timidity avoids speech out of fear. Strategic silence withholds speech out of calculation. One shrinks. The other expands control without moving. Once you adopt this lens, you start seeing the battlefield clearly. Conversations stop being emotional exchanges and become terrain. Pauses become choke points. Listening becomes reconnaissance. And speech, when deployed, is no longer a reflex, but a strike. This chapter exists to remove a lie from your operating system, that you must speak to maintain relevance. In reality, relevance is maintained by those who can afford not to. Silence is not the absence of power. It is the signal that power is present and watching. Power is not emotional. It is transactional. And every transaction is governed by information asymmetry. Who knows more controls more. Who reveals more pays more. This is not philosophy, it's economics applied to human behavior. Every time you speak, you are making an offer. An offer of data. Your intentions. Your priorities. Your fears. Your timeline. Even your emotional temperature. The naive believe words are neutral. They are not. Words are currency, and most men are reckless spenders. Silence, by contrast, hoards capital. When two men interact, an invisible ledger opens. One side gathers intelligence. The other side supplies it. The imbalance determines the outcome long before any decision is announced. This is why experienced operators let others talk themselves into disadvantage. They don't interrupt. They don't correct. They let the other man overinvest. You've seen this dynamic but misread it. You thought the quiet man lacked confidence. In reality, he was pricing you. Information always moves uphill. Subordinates explain. Superiors observe. Employees justify. Leaders decide. The moment you feel compelled to clarify yourself, you've subconsciously accepted a lower rung in the hierarchy, even if no one explicitly placed you there. Silence disrupts this exchange. When you don't immediately respond, the other party begins to negotiate internally. Did I say too much? Did I miscalculate? What does his silence mean? That internal dialogue weakens their position. They start offering concessions, unprompted extra details, softer language, revised demands, anything to regain footing. This is the leverage curve. The more one side speaks, the steeper their loss of control. Understand this. People reveal not when they're asked, but when they're uncomfortable. Silence creates that discomfort without confrontation. It is a clean method, surgical. No aggression required. This is why silence is feared in negotiations. It exposes imbalance. The talker becomes aware instinctively that he is bleeding value. And once that awareness sets in, confidence fractures. You were trained to fill gaps, to respond quickly, to be collaborative. This training benefits systems, not sovereign individuals. Speed favors the prepared and the powerful. Silence forces delay. Delay forces reassessment. Reassessment shifts leverage. Look at legal systems. Anything you say can and will be used against you. That rule exists because institutions understand information economics perfectly. They want you talking. They want you volunteering context. They want you explaining. Silence denies them profit. Social systems are no different. The man who explains himself becomes predictable. Predictability is exploitable. The unreadable man forces others to hedge their behavior. They move cautiously. They reveal their strategies prematurely. This is where most men fail. They confuse honesty with transparency. Honesty is alignment between word and intent. Transparency is exposure. Power demands the first and punishes the second. You are not obligated to give people clarity. Clarity is a privilege granted upward, not outward. The higher your position, the less you explain. The lower your position, the more you justify. This pattern is universal from corporations to crime families to militaries. Silence also preserves optionality. The moment you state a position, you collapse possibilities. You lock yourself into a narrative. Silence keeps doors open. It allows you to adjust without contradiction, to move without apology. This chapter is not teaching you to manipulate with lies. It's teaching you to stop subsidizing others with free intelligence. Most men are not outplayed, they are overexposed. When you learn to withhold, the balance shifts. Conversations slow down. Others begin circling you instead of the reverse. You stop reacting and start selecting. That is leverage economics in its purest form. Say less. Observe more. Collect advantage. Every environment sorts men into roles, not by title, but by behavior. These roles are not assigned, they are exposed. And nothing exposes a man faster than how he handles silence. There are 3 archetypes operating in every room. You are already one of them. The only question is whether you chose it or drifted into it. The first is the talker. The talker cannot tolerate open space. Silence feels like threat, so he fills it with noise. He explains his reasoning before it's questioned. He narrates his intentions. He volunteers context no one asked for. He believes this makes him trustworthy. In reality, it makes him transparent, and transparency is fatal in competitive systems. The talker mistakes activity for agency. He thinks engagement equals influence. What he doesn't realize is that he is broadcasting his internal state in real time. His anxieties leak through his words. His need for validation is audible. He is easy to steer because he is eager to be understood. Talkers are rarely evil. They are simply unmanaged. And unmanaged men are harvested. The second archetype is the watcher. The watcher speaks little, not because he is afraid, but because he is gathering. His default mode is observation. He lets others define themselves through behavior rather than claims. He notices who interrupts, who over-explains, who deflects. He watches reactions more than statements. The watcher understands that most people confess without realizing it. Give them enough room, and they reveal what they value, what they fear, and what they want from you. The watcher does not rush conclusions. He allows patterns to emerge. But here is the uncomfortable truth. The watcher is not yet dominant. Observation without action is stored potential. Many watchers remain spectators because they never convert silence into strategy. They see clearly but hesitate to move. Then there is the third archetype, the one no one names openly, the predator. The predator weaponizes silence. He understands both talkers and watchers, and he uses that understanding without hesitation. He lets talkers exhaust themselves, then uses their disclosures as leverage. He respects watchers but tests them, probing for weakness, patience, or resolve. The predator does not speak to be liked. He speaks to reposition the board. When he is silent, it is intentional. When he speaks, it is decisive. He never explains himself unless explanation advances control. Predators are not loud. They are not theatrical. They are efficient. Here's the threat you must face. The modern world is designed to produce talkers. Social platforms reward oversharing. Corporate cultures demand constant updates. Relationships are framed as emotional disclosures. Silence is labeled as avoidance, toxicity, or guilt. This moral framing is not accidental. It identifies compliant men and pressures them to self-expose. Those who resist are marked as difficult. But difficulty is simply resistance to extraction. Most men move between talker and watcher depending on context. Very few graduate to predator, not because they lack intelligence, but because they lack the stomach. Predation requires emotional detachment. It requires accepting that most interactions are not fair exchanges, but positioning contests. You must also understand this. Predators are always scanning for talkers. They can smell them. Excessive explanation is blood in the water. The more you talk, the more you signal harvestability. Silence reverses this dynamic. It forces role reassignment. Talkers grow nervous around you. Watchers pay attention. Predators slow down. The moment you stop over-explaining, you exit the lowest tier. The moment you start using silence deliberately, you enter a different selection pool. This chapter exists to make you uncomfortable with your current classification. Because once you see the archetypes clearly, you can no longer pretend neutrality. You are either being read, or you are the one reading. History is not written by the loud. It is written about them after they're removed. Real power leaves. Fewer quotes. Every decisive arena that ever mattered, war rooms. Courts, dynasties, criminal empires operated under one unspoken rule. The man who speaks least survives longest. Not because he is kinder or wiser, but because he is harder to corner. Look at interrogations. The guilty talk. The desperate talk. The untrained talk. Silence forces the interrogator to escalate, to reveal tactics, to make mistakes. This is why professionals are trained to shut down. Words create angles of attack. Silence collapses them. Courts function the same way. Statements are liabilities. Records become weapons. The legal system doesn't fear lies, it thrives on them. What it cannot exploit easily is refusal. Silence delays outcomes. Delay shifts leverage. Delay exhausts opposition. This pattern repeats in war. The best generals were not emotional broadcasters. They concealed intent. They leaked selectively. They allowed enemies to misread their posture. Battles were won before contact through what was not said. Noise attracts fire. In political history, the most dangerous men were often described as reserved, distant, hard to read. That wasn't a personality quirk. It was insulation. Every word a leader speaks becomes precedent. Precedent limits future movement. Silence preserves maneuverability. Now understand the modern inversion. Today, you are told that visibility equals relevance, that constant updates equal value, that if you don't speak, you disappear. This is false. You don't disappear, you become untrackable. The loud are indexed, profiled, reduced to predictable loops. Algorithms understand them. Institutions understand them. Enemies understand them. The quiet man forces speculation. And speculation breeds caution. Human nature has not changed. Only the extraction methods have. Where empires once demanded tribute and gold, modern systems demand data. Your opinions. Your emotions. Your positions. Every time you share them freely, you make yourself legible. Legibility is vulnerability. Silence disrupts this extraction. Look at criminal hierarchies. The most protected figures rarely give orders directly. They speak through intermediaries. They let others expose themselves. When arrests happen, it is the talkers who fall first. The quiet remain rumors. Even in social conflicts, the pattern holds. Arguments are lost by those who explain too much. The man who stays silent forces the other side to escalate until they discredit themselves. Emotional leakage is always punished. This is why silence is often framed as guilt. It's psychological warfare. If silence truly implied weakness, it wouldn't need to be attacked so aggressively. The system wants you talking because talking makes you predictable. There is also a darker truth. People project onto silence. They insert their own fears into the void. They assume hostility, superiority, or intent. All three give you psychological elevation without effort. This is not theory. It is observable across time. Empires fell because leaders spoke too soon. Revolutions succeeded because plans stayed contained. Men were executed because of confessions, not conspiracies. The archive of history is a graveyard of quotes. Silence has always been the shield of the powerful because it reduces exposure. It limits records. It forces opponents to guess, and guessing introduces error. This chapter exists to destroy your last excuse, that silence is socially risky. History shows the opposite. Speaking is the greater gamble. You just don't notice because the casualties aren't highlighted. The quiet are not celebrated. They are preserved, and preservation is the prerequisite for control. Silence is useless if it's accidental. Power does not come from merely talking less, it comes from withholding at the correct moments. Timing turns restraint into leverage. Most men fail here. They either go mute randomly, which reads as insecurity, or they speak compulsively, which reads as need. Operational silence sits between those extremes. It is deliberate, predictable only to you. The first rule: never speak to relieve tension. Tension is not the enemy, it is the instrument. When a conversation tightens, when a pause stretches, when eyes linger, the weak feel compelled to resolve it. They fill the gap. That gap is where leverage forms. Do not close it prematurely. When someone asks you a question, you are not obligated to answer immediately. Immediate responses signal compliance. Delay signals consideration or dominance. Even a few seconds forces recalibration on the other side. They begin adjusting tone, offering clarifications, softening demands. This is not rudeness. It is posture. The second rule: do not clarify unchallenged statements. If someone misunderstands you but does not confront you, let the misunderstanding live. Correcting it voluntarily gives away information and collapses ambiguity. Ambiguity protects you. Precision exposes you. Precision should be used only when it advances position. Third, speak last whenever possible. The final word anchors perception. Whoever speaks last defines the memory of the exchange. Everyone else reacts to that frame, even retroactively. Silence allows you to absorb all inputs before committing to a position. In negotiations, this is decisive. Early speakers set ceilings. Late speakers move them. Fourth, separate silence from absence. You must remain present, observant, still. Silence with presence unsettles. Silence with withdrawal invites dismissal. Hold eye contact. Maintain posture. Let your body signal that the silence is intentional, not evasive. This is why stillness is critical. Fidgeting undermines silence. Movement leaks anxiety. Stillness reinforces control. Fifth, never narrate your intentions. Men who announce plans are asking for permission or interference. Intention should be inferred through action, not explained through words. Explanation gives others time to prepare defenses or counters. The battlefield rewards surprise, not disclosure. Operational silence also includes knowing when to speak decisively. Silence is not eternal. It is stored force. When released, it should cut clean. Short sentences. No qualifiers. No justifications. One position. Then stop. Overspeaking after a decisive statement dilutes it. It tells the listener you're unsure. Certainty does not echo itself. There is also a social filter embedded here. Some people will pressure you to talk. They'll accuse you of being cold, difficult, or evasive. That pressure reveals their intent. They want access to your internal state. Deny it. Those who respect silence are safe. Those who fear it are extracting. Use silence heavily in first encounters. Familiarity creates entitlement. Delay that entitlement. Let others reveal their boundaries before you expose yours. Understand this final operational truth. Silence forces others to perform. They explain. They justify. They entertain. You evaluate. This reverses the default dynamic, where men audition for approval without realizing it. This chapter exists to convert silence from theory into execution. Without structure, silence is just quietness. With structure, it becomes a system. You are no longer reserved. You are unavailable by design. Silence cannot coexist with neediness. One will kill the other. If you still require approval, explanation will leak out of you under pressure. If you still want to be liked, silence will feel like self-sabotage. This chapter is not about technique. It is about identity execution. The identity that talks too much is not strategic, it is hungry. Hungry for validation. Hungry for alignment. Hungry to be seen as good, reasonable, fair. That hunger is the crack predators enter through. This is the identity. You must put down. You were conditioned to believe that being understood equals being safe. That if others get you, they won't attack you. This is childhood logic carried into adult power arenas. In reality, being understood makes you predictable. Predictability invites control. The first step is the need to be perceived correctly. You will be misunderstood, intentionally, repeatedly. Let it happen. Correcting perception is labor, and labor is submission when unrequested. Power lets perception drift until it becomes inconvenient, then corrects it surgically. The second death is the need to explain. Your morality. Good men over-explain because they want credit for intent. But intent does not matter. Outcomes do. History does not reward good intentions. It rewards effective restraint. Morality advertised is weakness. Morality enforced quietly is dominance. You do not need to prove you are fair. You need to be unmovable. The third death is the need to resolve discomfort. Silence creates tension. Tension reveals hierarchy. The man who breaks first exposes himself. If you rush to soothe, clarify, or soften, you are signaling that discomfort controls you. That makes you governable. Learn to sit in the fire without reacting. This is the threshold most men never cross. Now comes the replacement. You replace the talkative identity with the sovereign. 1. The sovereign does not chase understanding. He assumes authority over his own internal state. He does not outsource validation. He does not audition. His silence is not defensive, it is declare. It says, I am complete without. Your agreement. This identity speaks only when speech changes reality. Otherwise, it observes. It waits. It selects. Silence becomes not an absence, but a perimeter. Those allowed inside it are chosen carefully. You will notice something once this replacement stabilizes. People begin qualifying themselves to you. They explain more. They seek feedback. They attempt alignment. Not because you demanded it, but because your silence implied higher ground. This is not charisma. This is hierarchy asserting itself without announcement. The final identity shift is this. You stop seeing conversations as emotional exchanges and start seeing them as positioning events. Once that happens, unnecessary speech becomes repulsive. You feel it weakening you in real time. That disgust is the signal that the old identity is dead. Silence is no longer effort. It is default. And men who master this are not loud. They are not visible. They are not celebrated. They are deferred to. This is the last correction. Silence is not optional in competitive environments. It is a selection filter. And if you ignore it, you will not be punished loudly, you will be quietly managed. The world does not eliminate talkers. It uses them. Men who overshare are promoted just enough to extract effort, then stalled. Men who explain are kept in perpetual review. Men who narrate their emotions are studied, predicted, and redirected. They believe they are participating. In reality, they are being positioned. Selection does not favor the honest. It favors the unreadable. Every hierarchy needs contrast. Loud men create noise. Quiet men create gravity. One fills space. The other bends it. When decisions are made under pressure, gravity wins. Understand the warning clearly. Every word you speak becomes material for someone else's strategy. Your preferences. Your grievances. Your ambitions. Once exposed, they can be delayed, denied, or exploited. You don't lose because you're wrong. You lose because you're legible. Silence denies targeting data. You will be tempted to break it, to prove intelligence, to show alignment, to defend yourself against imagined judgments. That impulse is the last remnant of the identity you were trained into. Kill it. Those who matter do not require explanation. Those who demand it are not neutral. They are extracting certainty so they can move safely around you or against you. Silence creates risk for others, and risk forces respect. This is the final inversion you must accept. Being misunderstood is safer than being fully known. Fully known men are cataloged. Cataloged men are managed. Managed men never rule. There is no applause for this path. No reassurance. No validation loop. You will feel colder, more distant, more alone. That isolation is not loss, it is insulation. From this point forward, speak only when silence costs you more than words. Let others audition. Let others confess. Let others overextend. Your job is not to be heard. Your job is to remain uncontained. Speak less. Observe more. And let the world reveal itself against your silence. You replace the talkative identity with the Kiden Lazatum, Sovereign One. The sovereign does not chase understanding. He assumes authority over his own internal state. He does not outsource validation. He does not audition. His silence is not defensive, it is declarative.